Excited to be here with you today, and how many of you guys are excited about tonight? Any of you excited? That's right. Well, it is an honor to be here. We happen to be driving through, and I contacted, and it's just been encouraging traveling around Virginia, seeing and hearing from people. And I just returned from Tennessee. We were in Nashville this morning, where they're kicking off a rally for Amendment 1, which is a pro-life bill that will hopefully help save more babies. And so we had an event there last night in Nashville. But I've been mostly spending time in Virginia lately, because this is where really we're going to send a loud and clear signal, hopefully. And I just want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing, all the efforts you put in. How many of you knocked on some doors? A few. How many of you made some phone calls, posted some stuff up online, told your friends? How many of you don't understand the question so far? Yeah, I see you out there. So it has been fun, though, I think. I know me and my family, as we grew up, we used to go out and always share and try to, make sure that we were doing the best that we could do. And so it's just it's exciting to see what the Lord is doing. And really, it's about the effort and it's about the cause. And win or lose for each one of these races and what's being done, our goal is to be faithful. God calls us to stand. You look at the armor of God in Ephesians 6 and what that talks about. You having done all, you stand. And that's really what we're required to do as believers, is to stand. And that's what we do in Washington, D.C. as well. So I wanted to mention just a little bit about the work we do, and hopefully we'll get to shake a few of your hands. We're on our way to Richmond. So we've got about 5 hours ahead of us, and I was talking to the state trooper out here. He said, yeah, you got about a 4.5-hour drive. I said, well, it depends on how fast you drive. So he said, okay, well, 5. And I said, well, more like 3.5. So hopefully I won't get to see him again tonight. But anyway, but no, we have enjoyed spending time here in Virginia. We actually live in Maryland, just over the line up there. But we moved about 5 months ago from Arkansas. And yes, we do wear shoes there in Arkansas. But it was an interesting thing. And as a homeschool student myself, I can remember waking up in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, and I'd go about my chores and my studies, and I would always think, what does the Lord have for me in the future? What are the things that God would have for me to do? But my parents taught us from an early age to serve and to look beyond ourselves. And so as my wife and I got married and we began to have children, I knew that the Lord always had something for us. And as I was a young boy growing up, I had the opportunity to work alongside state senators and state representatives in our state capital and around the state. And I really became involved in the political process. And the Lord really laid on my dad's heart to run for office. And as we transitioned through all that, it was neat to see how the Lord really painted a picture. And it was in 2002, on May 21st, that my dad was in a Republican primary for United States Senate. And he lost that election. He only got 22% of the vote. But yet, it was through that the Lord really showed what he had for him in the end. We were walking down to vote that day, and I can remember there was 13 of us at the time. It was back when we had a small family. And there was 13 of us lined up there. And the Associated Press took a photo of the family going down to vote. And it ended up hitting the front page of the New York Times. And it said basically this crazy guy in Arkansas has all these kids, and he lost for election. But it was through that a Parents Magazine reporter picked up that photo, and they put that into an article. And my parents went into it with the same premise that they had went into everything. They said, you can't edit out our faith. That's the core of our life. And, it goes back to that Ephesians 6, standing where God's placed you. They had stood in politics. They had stood in business, and they had stood with their family. But then they were standing, saying, as we're going to go into entertainment, or as we're going out there putting our family in that place, we're going to stand. Well, the Lord really rewarded that. And Discovery Channel contacted them, said, we read an article in Parents Magazine. We think this might be an interesting story. And I don't know how they figured that. I mean, 19 kids isn't all that uncommon, at least in my household. But it's, it is something that that the Lord has used to really encourage families and to, I think, to hopefully shine the light of Christ. And as we have been, as we went into the same, with the same stipulation there, we told them you have to share our faith, because it's really who we are. And they did, and it's went on to be now the longest running show on that network, on TLC, and it continues to come out, and the Lord is just faithful. We've done over 200 shows with the network now. But why politics? Why elections? Why does all this matter? The Lord uses some unconventional methods sometimes to really use people in key places. And as I made the decision to go to work for the Family Research Council in Washington, it wasn't easy. I left behind a business and, of course, my family and all the things that people think would be a picture of success. But really, when it comes down to it, life is not about money. Life is not about fame. And a lot of you young people in here, I'd say the average age in this room is much lower than many audiences that I speak to. But it is encouraging to see. But I'll tell you, young people, it's not about the money you make. It's not about how many people know who you are. It's about if you're faithful to what God's given you to do. And that's what a lot of these men that are out there running for office, E.W. Jackson, Ken Cuccinelli, Mark Obenshane, these guys who are out there, and your local candidates here in the area, who are standing for what's right. It's not easy. The attacks and the things that they're throwing at them every single day, and that they have been throwing at their families, it's not a task that anyone would wish on their families. And so as I went into work in Washington, I've been exposed even more to the corruption, to the lack of respect, and really to just the attacks of the enemy and the ways that he's working in that city. But the things that are most encouraging is traveling around and seeing people like you who are working and who are standing in that gap, realizing that the principles that we believe in, the values that we hold dear, are important and that they do matter. And I had the opportunity to travel with E.W. Jackson, and I really feel bad because I was actually, we had our Values Voter Summit there in Washington, and I was sitting in the back room with Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum and Jim DeMint, and we were sitting back there having a conversation, and EW had just went out on the stage to share at the Values Voter Summit, and Mike Huckabee leans over to me and he goes, "I'm going to kick you." And I said, "Really?" He said, "I'm going to kick you." He goes, "You can't stick me out there, right, to follow him." He goes, "That's not right. I can't try to follow him." He goes, "That guy," he said, "he is fired up." And it was really funny because then the senator and both senators, Jim DeMint and Santorum, were all commenting, saying, it's awesome to see a man like E.W. Jackson, a man who is standing, who has went and stood not only in Harvard, where he was, in one of the best schools in the country as far as academically and what the world looks at, but he also went back in and said, I want to serve as a minister. And he went to do that, and he stepped up to the plate, and he serves in his church, and he serves in his family, and he serves in his community. But he also is one of these men that says, we need to put these things aside, and we need to talk about the issues that matter. And that was so encouraging to me when I first heard that. And so it was really awesome to get to know him. And I just pray that tonight people will see, regardless of the results of this election, and I really feel confident that we're going to have a great night. But regardless of the results of this election, it really is about continuing to stand for those principles. And we had the opportunity to have, when my family was up earlier this month, last month, we actually had the bus tour right after, and we came down through Virginia. We didn't get quite down here, but we did get to swing through. And it was really encouraging. We went to dinner with the Cuccinellis over at their house. And just to see and to hear from them firsthand some of the things that they've been facing and some of the things that people are saying. And, obviously, if you watch television at all and you happen to catch a commercial on the radio or anything, they're just the lies and the distortion and the things that they're dealing with every day, and to hear from those family members that, the things that are going on. And it was just, it reminded me that when we are willing to put ourselves on the line, it's not always easy. But when we do it for a higher cause and for a higher calling, the Lord is the one that will reward us. And so I encourage you to continue to pray, not only this evening, as these results will begin to come in and as people are still out there casting their votes in the ballot box, but I encourage you to pray for these families as they go on from here, and to pray for the men and women that are out there fighting and standing in your state legislature. And I had the opportunity to meet many of them as we traveled across the state. But I encourage you to make sure that you look into your own heart, into your own life, and you young people, to say, what would God have me to do? How can I be involved, and how can I step up? Maybe it's running for office. Maybe it is getting more involved. And maybe some of you are involved and you think, well, I'm already doing enough. Well, you know what? Pray about doing more. Because I felt like I was doing enough as a used car dealer. And I tell people, I used to be a used car dealer, and now I work in politics. I cleaned up my act. So, but it really is, the Lord places us all in different positions. Doesn't mean that because you're running for governor, you're better than somebody who is, volunteering to put out signs or knocking on doors. And it doesn't mean that because you're a preacher that you're better than someone who's out, helping cut the grass or to do things to serve in the church. But God gives us each gifts and talents and abilities, and our goal should be to honor and glorify Him. And so I want to give you just a couple things really fast before I head off. And we're going to hopefully get to shake some hands, like I said. And my wife, Anna, and Mackenzie, and Michael, and Marcus, our 3 children, are with us. So say hi, guys. Awesome. Yeah, they've been riding in a car for a little bit. I think we're going to get close to 10 hours on the road today. So that's a little rough. We had some friends traveling with us, and we parted ways in Nashville. So I get to do a little bit of driving today. But FRC Action is the 501c4 political arm of the Family Research Council, and very simply, not to bore you with the details, but our goal is really to mobilize and educate Christian conservatives on why they need to be involved, and exactly what you've been talking about today. And I know that you guys have been having a mock election, is that right? Is that what you call that? I wouldn't call it a mock election. I'd say it's election. It looks pretty good to me. But it is neat to see, even in these little circles, as you guys have been doing this today and seeing how that functions and how things work and the role of government and all those kind of things. That's what is going on in Washington, except for somehow they didn't learn the basics. A lot of them didn't learn that. So you're getting a jump start. You're getting an opportunity to really plug in from an early age. So you're mobilizing and educating Christians to be involved. And then we're also working to train and to recruit candidates. And so if you know people that are well qualified, that have the credentials they need, or maybe have the experience, or maybe they just have the desire to run for office, I encourage you to contact us. We would love to talk with you about state rep races, state senate races, those kind of things. We have developed a list of target states that we're going into for the 2014 elections that we'll be working on. And there's going to be a lot of great things. So we love your support and love your help. And we're working along the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, Generation Joshua. How many of you are a part of that? A few of you? Yeah? How many of you know about Generation Joshua? You know about that? It's awesome. It's a great organization. I know Will Estrada very well, and Joel as well, the director of that. And just they're doing a fabulous job. And they just do some great work up there in D.C. And not only for the homeschool community, but really for all the families that are saying, we're going to take responsibility for our children's education. And they're standing in that gap. But now they're even going a step further and saying, all right, let's mobilize. And so we're teaming up with them to make sure that the homeschool community is able to take their activism to a new level. And so we're also working to realize that there's power in numbers. And that's where you can come in. If you go to frcaction.org, that's frcaction.org, you can write that down. If you're on Twitter, it's at frcaction. Facebook, the same thing, FRC Action. You can find us on there. You can also go to frc.org as our parent organization, Family Research Council. We have tons of resources on there. Any of the issues that you're dealing with in your local communities, if you are having an issue with religious liberty, if you're in the military and you're having attacks there, we are leading a coalition of 50 different organizations making sure that your religious freedoms are protected in the military. And it's important that we band together. And in closing, I'll just say we're so grateful for all the work that's being done around the nation, but it's encouraging to see what you guys are doing right here in this community. And together, we're going to continue to stand and we're going to continue to make a difference. So thank you so much for having us come out, and God bless you guys. Have a great evening.